Your views on the market's performance, losing over 200 points, is it anything to do with the market or the fact that, you know, you're almost headed to elections?
Well, thank you very much, Lerato, for this. Like you said rightly, the market lost about 0.9% today. And part of the drivers we see why the market does that is about three. I'll put about three. Number one, I'll say about the political instability is a great concern. For a very long time, we are seeing an election that looks very keenly contested. And therefore, investors are watching, are looking at it and say, where is it going to be? There might be a runoff, there might be a stalemate, and therefore, let's be very cautious. The second thing had to do with the management of the economy. Like you rightly said earlier, you said something about inflation being a concern and the CBN raising the interest rate. What this tends to is that we are having an improvement in yield on the bond market, and therefore we are having a positive real return, whereas the equity market continues to suffer a negative real return. Investors would have to move to that other side. Again, we have issues with the number of people that are trading on our market. We have dearth of institutional investors that could buy and hold for a long time. So as long as we continue to have large retail investors, we're going to see the market moving in this way.
Talk to us about some news making headlines today. A memorandum of understanding between Access Bank and Intercontinental Bank. We're starting to see some movement regarding what is the end game for the rescued banks. What do you make of this potential merger?
Well, I will say that right now, there's still some uncertainties prevailing in this merger. I must say that it's a good step in the fact that finally, this is signaling the end of the uncertainty trailing these rescued banks. However, I think the investors are looking at this from a different way that we expect it to be. For example, a lot of people are looking at it that why is it Access that is buying an Intercontinental Bank that looks like a larger bank than Access Bank? Again, when you look at what happened in the market, you see that investors seems to be more interested in Intercontinental share than Access Bank. I would say this is probably because of some rumor going around that Intercontinental is buying about 80% of Intercontinental Bank at 50 billion. I mean, Access Bank is buying Intercontinental at 50 billion. Now, the total market value of Intercontinental is about 27 billion, which means it's a premium. So you see investors running to buy Intercontinental rather than buy Access Bank. And then there's tendency that there might be a drag on Access Bank, and therefore probably a lot of people are being cautious with the shares of Access Bank.
I mean, obviously, we're not clear as to how much Access is going to be paying for its stake in Intercontinental. Everybody's just basically speculating, as you're suggesting. But there are other limitations, for instance, such as the clarity on the status of Intercontinental following the CBN's audit, given the size of Intercontinental Bank. So structurally, what sort of entity are we going to be left with?
Well, as we can see, there are gains for this kind of merger for Access Bank. Access Bank could leverage on the size that Intercontinental portend and use that to drive their retail strategies that have been running away from time. But there's a lot of potential risk as well. Like I said earlier, both banks are quite very aggressive, and therefore there's tendency that rather than get somebody that can make you meet at a neutral ground, you are seeing some guys that is even making you go all out and be more aggressive as well. Now, the potential is that the size of Intercontinental, if some holes that we see there is not yet plugged, have the tendency of dragging Access Bank down. All in all, the other rescued banks, as soon as we start having the details of the information, then analysts will be able to put figures together and be able to say this is exactly the way to go. But right now, we are only just speculating, and that's why you see this kind of reaction from investors.
Okay, Femi, a final question. What should the authorities be doing in terms of handling these expressions of interest and memorandum of understanding? Some are saying that the Nigeria Stock Exchange should be suspending the shares that are trading or the share prices as they trade. Should action be taken by way of governance?
I would say I will support the fact that we leave it not yet suspended. The reason is because you will recall that earlier years we have a kind of abuse of the use of technical suspension, when at the end of the day you would see that the merger might fall through. And because of this, I think we have to be sure of where we're going before we start putting tears on it. A very good example, again, is the one of NBC delisting their shares. Even up to now, there's no suspension. And that is because the SEC and the NSE, they are still talking to the company to know that everything that needs to be done is done before this is done. So I will say that we need to be sure that this merger is going to go ahead and everything we plan in it will be done before we start putting a tears on it.